Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm here in Washington, D.C. The reason I'm here is because there was a hurricane heading right for my face in New York. It was a Category 1 hurricane. It's spelled Henry, but everybody's pronouncing it Henri, which is like the most ridiculous. I mean, I know that's technically the right way you're supposed to say it. It's the French way of saying it, but of course it sounds incredibly pompous to me because I'm a good old Yankee American. So it was heading right for where I live in New York, and it said that power outages were, quote, likely. So it was, at the time, 75 or 80 mile an hour winds. Thankfully, at the very last second, it was downgraded to a tropical storm, which is about 70 mile an hour winds. And it ticked just slightly east, so it's hitting Connecticut more head-on instead of eastern New York. So I sort of lucked out, but I had to come here for safety because I was expecting power outages, so here I am in D.C. Thanks to everybody in the control room for hooking me up at the last minute and staying and helping me out with the show today. The show must go on, as the old saying goes, so let's go ahead and jump into it. First thing I want to show everybody is a new poll is out from Concerned Veterans for America, and it's about Afghanistan. It was done by YouGov. So you can see here, new poll, Americans strongly support Afghanistan withdrawal, want domestic issues prioritized. A majority of Americans, 51%, believe the United States should be less militarily engaged in conflicts around the world. Only 7% think we should be more engaged. That's an amazing number. A strong majority of Americans, 60%, support the decision to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, compared to 22% that opposes the decision. Opposition to redeploying American troops to Afghanistan, 47%, far outweighs the support for such a move, 29%. Two-thirds of Americans, 67%, think we should prioritize domestic policy issues over foreign policy issues. So this is a poll that I think was framed in a fair way, and this is a poll that came out after all of the chaos and the mayhem in Afghanistan and the fall of Kabul to the Taliban. So I think this is a great example. When you phrase the questions in a fair way, this is the result you're always going to get. And don't let anybody trick you. I told you guys there was a poll back in 2013 or 2014. Less than 20% of the American people supported the war in Afghanistan at the time. It was more unpopular than the war in Vietnam at the height of its unpopularity. So that says something. That speaks volumes. And now you have this massive concerted effort from the media to do war propaganda, to nitpick every element of the withdrawal, to try to move these poll numbers. And listen, when you ask the questions fairly, the polls have not moved. But it is true, and we covered this on our last episode of Crystal and Kyle and Friends in the intro, it is true that when you muddy the waters, the polls have moved. So, in fact, what we're seeing right now is, and this is fairly devastating and it pisses me off like you guys wouldn't believe, but even though it's a 60% issue to get out of Afghanistan, now Joe Biden's approval on the issue of Afghanistan, even though he did exactly that, the thing that everybody says they want, it dropped all the way down to, I think the number is 25%. So what does that tell me? That tells me that the colossal media propaganda campaign is working. And the reason why it's so important to speak up in support of Biden for doing this is because we want to incentivize for, not just for Biden for the near future, but for presidents in the future. You want to incentivize them to continue to do the right thing, to continue to get out of wars, to continue to do the right thing on the domestic front. But what we're learning now is the media might be the number one obstacle to doing good things. So, of course, you have corruption in multinational corporations and the military-industrial complex, and, you know, big money really runs the show. But what we're learning is the mainstream media across the ideological spectrum, whether they're liberal or conservative, they're all pro-war. They're all pro-war. And the point I keep coming back to is, look at just how much they're nitpicking the withdrawal. Every nook and cranny is under a microscope. But they didn't do this at all for the 20 years we were there. So the same level of scrutiny is not reserved for when we're there doing the war and all the things that we're doing wrong in the course of the war. And, you know, we've gone over them a million times here, but shouldn't there have been a week-long or two-week-long outrage campaign from the media when we found out that our top allies in Afghanistan were warlords with child sex slaves, and then we discharged people in our own military when they blew the whistle on that? Why wasn't that a scandal? Why didn't that last a week or 2 weeks in the media, or even longer? Why didn't they do that when we bombed a hospital in Kabul, killing 23 innocent civilians? Or when we bombed a wedding, as we did all the time, not just in Afghanistan, but with our drone war in North Africa and in other places? Because again, and listen, this might sound conspiratorial, this might sound Alex Jonesy, but the facts are the facts. You do have a lot of these reporters just serve as stenographers to their sources at the CIA and the Pentagon. And so the CIA and the Pentagon, they're in favor of the forever wars. And a lot of them are paid by the defense contractors. This is the military-industrial complex. And so when you have MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News all in unison, all on the same page, that the war can't end, man, that's a powerful thing. And what you see is Joe Biden, all he hears and all of his staffers hear is the outrage and the outcry against this. Even though I just cited for you with the American people, they want him to do this. They want him to do it. But now we're in this weird position, which is, again, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before, where the thing he did was popular, but he's tanking and losing ground on the popular thing that he did. That makes no sense. That's like a massive contradiction. But again, it all comes down to how you phrase the question. What they're trying to do is conflate the idea of getting out of Afghanistan with the way in which we got out of Afghanistan. And so when you conflate those things, then yeah, people are like, yeah, well, there were mess ups and we should have gotten our people out and the Taliban is, resurgent and that's not good. But again, it's like the old saying goes, you're missing the forest. Some people say for the trees or missing the forest through the trees is what I used to say. So keep your eye on the ball and look at the bigger picture, guys. He did the right thing. And the fact that he did the right thing, that's why he's getting this backlash from the military-industrial complex and the entire establishment. And so, what a weird scenario that we're in, that now Kyle Kulinski seems to be the biggest defender of Joe Biden in the entire country, when nobody was tougher on Joe Biden every step of the way. Why? Because it has nothing to do with Joe Biden. It has to do with his policies. When I go after him, I go after him for the bankruptcy bill, which made it so students can't file for bankruptcy on their student loan debt. For the crime bill, which locked up a generation of innocent young men and women of color. I went after him for NAFTA and supporting outsourcing deals, and originally supporting the war in Iraq, for example, supporting the Patriot Act. Those things are ripe for criticism. They should be criticized. But notice, for those things, the media didn't say anything because they supported those positions too. The one time Joe Biden does the right thing, now they come after him. And frankly, I don't care why Joe Biden did the right thing, but he did the right thing. I don't care why he did it. I don't care if it's because he's trying to one-up Obama. I don't care if it's because when he got to Washington, D.C., he experienced firsthand what happened with Vietnam, and he saw the disaster it was, and he knew that getting out was the right thing to do. I don't know. I don't care, but he did the right thing, and so he needs that positive reinforcement. So, I mean, again, it's just an absolutely insane situation that we find ourselves in, where he does the popular thing, but he's losing ground on that issue. But here we are. So, don't get it twisted, guys. And also, let me just say one final point on this that I've made a number of times, but I'm going to keep making it because there's a lot of misinformation out there now, and it needs to be corrected. Guys, it's done. It's over. The Taliban has Kabul, and they're not going to lose Kabul. They're not. They have it. And so, yes, we have 5,000 or 6,000 boots on the ground. It is literally just to secure the airport to get our people out. That's it. And by the way, the evacuations are working. Not a single American has died as of the recording of this segment. Not a single American has died. And you have now over 30,000 who've been evacuated. So that's why you send the 5,000 or 6,000 troops. If I was president of the United States and I withdrew and we had the same set of facts, I would have done the exact same fucking thing. Now, people can look at that and pretend like, no, we haven't ended the war, but they're just wrong. They're wrong. And the evidence that they're wrong is the entire media is now hating on Joe Biden. Because the deep state is panicking, and they're using their lackeys in the media to try to move the poll numbers and do the propaganda for their position, which is more endless war. So there's a reason why everybody turned on him. So now this is an instance where we should all be there to defend him because he did the right thing. So there you have it. This new poll shows positive numbers. Only 7% want us to be more engaged in the world. So this verifies our position all along. But beware the polls that have numbers that show the opposite because, again, they're trying to conflate issues on purpose. They're trying to make it seem like the public is also for the endless war. And the one poll that is real is that even though this is a popular thing, somehow his numbers on Afghanistan are dropping. So if you're going to nitpick the withdrawal 1,000 ways to Sunday, you absolutely better have done that with the war when we were there. You can't nitpick the withdrawal, but not nitpick the actual war effort. And if you did nitpick the war effort, you would have realized there was a hell of a lot more to nitpick in the war than the withdrawal. That's the bottom line. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.